Hey guys, the gear for today, Taum Sauk. I assume that's how you pronounce that. From Declaration Grooming, and of course we've got this as a collaboration. And so the scent was made by Chatillon Luxe. And the Icarus base is from Declaration Grooming. It's one of my favorite bases. I probably like it even better than Milksteak, their most current base. We work in that soap with this, my prize from the Lather Games of 2020 this year. And it's a wonderful, wonderful That Darn Rob handle. And this is now a little bit of a rarity, kind of, because That Darn Rob changed his company name to Chisel and Hound. And in a way, it's not rare because he said he put out about 2,000 brushes with That Darn Rob name, and so it is in good company, but it is no longer a name that is current. I really like many of his designs. And the hardware, we've got a Nacet blade, which often does a great job in the razors I put it in, usually on the sharp end of things, respectively, of course, relatively rather, sharper than some others. Then we've got the same razor I used yesterday. This is the 46 gap Wolfman WR1. I wanted to put another blade in this razor. A couple of the ones I put in weren't all that great. What did I try recently? Was it the 7 o'clock Super Stainless? Was it the Astra Platinum? I think it was the Astra Platinum. So we're going to stick this Nacet, and this is not the Nacet. I'm kind of known for the Nacet blade because I am working on one that has about 333 uses, and it's still going. I need to resume back that guy some point. Get all the way up to 365. Wouldn't that be cool? All right, so we tightened the head down. Now the balance point on this razor, I discovered last time I used it, is about right here. And what I kept discovering was that where I wanted to hold it, there wasn't any knurling. The knurling stops, obviously right here, and that's really the balance point. I kind of wish maybe the knurling shifted down a little bit. However, visually, I think the knurling looks good right where it is. Maybe add another band of knurling instead of just three. Add another one. I don't know. But fortunately, there's close enough to the balance point that this last ring here, I think it saved me and helped me to keep good grip on the razor. So I'm looking forward to see how this blade does, how it couples with the razor, because when you have just one razor, then you can run through and try different blades with it, figure out your favorite, and then stick with it if you want. Now, I would advise you, especially if you're new, to revisit those blades again maybe in 6 months, 8 months, because that happened with me with Feather and Pole Silver, two very popular blades. I didn't like them at first. Feather would give me more nicks on average than other blades, and my technique got better, and now I can use feathers whenever I want. Pole Silver started out with me a little rough, and now they're one of my favorites. They're even more reliable for me than feathers. But if you've got your technique down pat for a long time and you figure out your blade, then great. You're happy. That's awesome. If you then bring another razor, and I just spoke with somebody yesterday where they had been using a razor with a particular blade for a long time. They decided to branch out, buy another razor, and they assumed that their reliable blade was going to be just as reliable in the new razor. Well, the geometry could be totally different. If the geometry was identical, then the blade is going to be the same. That's just fine. But the geometry is almost certainly going to be different. The angle of the blade in relation to the head, of course, the exposure of the blade in and out of the top cap and base plate, the gap, all those different geometries can turn a favorite blade into one that you don't enjoy at all. So when you bring a new razor in, reevaluate, run through some blades. And so that's kind of what I'm doing with this Wolfman, mainly to find some good ones, because I've had a couple that were okay, but I'm thinking with such a mild gap in relation to most of the other WR1s that I should be able to find some really amazing blades. Now the soap. It's dark. It almost feels like it has some tonka or not vanilla, but yeah, kind of like tonka bean to balance it out a little bit. But this soap, I looked it up online and Try That Soap had it as cedar, juniper, and menthol. And all three of those have caused me to not like certain soaps. They have been, when used as a dominant factor, the problem that I had with some soaps, and I had to sell them. But then I didn't know that. I can smell the cedar, but this is a nice cedar. This is not a punchy, high, nasally cedar. I don't know if nasally makes any sense to you, but that's just the feel I get. It's a very woody cedar. I think the name is kind of cool, Taum Sauk, if I'm pronouncing it right. I did not look at the history. Oh, wait, yes, I did. It is the highest point, maybe in Missouri. Chatillon-Luc designed this scent, and this is designed to be a cold scent, cold and woody, just like the highest peak in Missouri. And so that's what this is. And I'm going to get to loading it, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my thoughts on this one. I brought Trade Winds just because I had it, and I feel like maybe trying it again. And I brought Dunshire. I used this the other day. And so I've got a balm and an alcohol splash. And so if I feel my face get roughed up a little bit, maybe I'll choose the balm. Otherwise, maybe I'll choose the splash. All right, so let's get my face wet. And we will load up. This puck has shrunken in from the sides just a little bit. Let's do a 50-second load just in case it's old. We've definitely had to deal with that with the Mike's Barbershop recently because it's one that I hadn't used in about 3 years. And I really had to give it a long load to get enough, to pick up enough soap from the puck. So my brush had a chance to soak a little bit. This does have gel tips, kind of minimal gel tips, not tons, and I'm happy about that. Okay, so we're going to do 50 seconds. Our 40's rolling around right there. Might as well get started. So 30 seconds on the next minute is what we're going to do here. So Taum Sauk, the name there is kind of a foreign name, almost seems outdoorsy. Seems maybe like an Indian name. And so I thought, hey, you know, that sounds like a cool scent. I saw people mention it. I saw people online say, hey, I like this. So I thought, hey, I'll put that on my list to try. So I looked up the notes and I saw cedar, menthol, juniper. And I said, oh, no way. There's no way I want to try that. And so I took it off my to-do list. And then a few months later, I saw it again. And I'm on a watch here. I'm about to hit that 30-second mark after the minute, and there we go. And it is kind of a brownish tinge to the lather. And while I'm rinsing the tub off here, and so give it a few more months, and I'm back with the same thought. I didn't remember the notes that I had looked up, and I thought the same exact thought process. I thought, hey, that's a cool name. That sounds outdoorsy. or interesting or natural or Indian or whatever. And I think maybe I'll put that on my list. And I went through it over again. And then I think I finally remembered that I didn't like it. And then I bought this miscellaneous surprise lot of soaps. And I saw it was one of them. And I thought, well, awesome. I'll get to try it out. I've been wanting to try that one out. So, isn't our brain weird sometimes? And I love those huge steel cups from Walmart. Keep my water cold. All right, my face is wet. Let's see if we loaded enough lather, enough soap. So that darn Rob put out a video, I think on Instagram and Facebook, explaining the reason for the change. He said that his Chisel and Hound was more the vibe and the feel that he wanted for his business. That darn Rob was almost tongue-in-cheek and very casual at first, and he already had the web domain and the property rights and all that to it, and so it was just easy to start his business up that way because he had done something else with that business already, and he just felt that now was a time to change. 1 teaspoon into this lather now, and the word hound is in there because he is a hound dog lover, and he had a hound dog that had been with him for such a long time around in his shop. Loved him so much, and he passed away last year. And so there are a few of his brushes that are going to have a coin that is the hound dog head, and that is his dog. That's that particular dog, and he's going to put those, he's going to choose which brush handles get that depending on how good he feels. Is it a special handle that really deserves that's honor? And chisel, of course, as he's a brush turner, chisel is essential for his business. So I don't like menthol in my soaps, so let's just see how that goes. Now, so far from the tub, I'm kind of liking the scent okay, so we'll just see what it turns into as we keep working it here. The woodiness of the cedar's backing off a little bit. I think the cold air scent, maybe the menthol, is starting to rise up a little bit more than it was on the dry soap. Icarus is such a good base. So we've got 2 teaspoons in, and now we have 3. Take a look at it. That looks pretty good. See how it's collapsing there? Wonder what happens if I turn it upside down. Ah, there we go. Ah. Yep. I'm going to go ahead and add the final 1/2 teaspoon just to kind of round it off. 4 teaspoons of water, 50 seconds of loading. From the looks of it, 50 seconds was a good guess. I'm going to end up with some extra margin at the end of the shave, I believe, but I'm happy that I did the 50. All right, get my face wet one more time. And we'll see how the Nacet works with this particular Wolfman. Now this brush is very dense, and so you'll often have an experience like what you'll see with me right here. Oh, you can't see anything, can you? I started out with a lot of lather on the brush, and you'll work it for a little while on your face, and it will just kind of leave the center of the brush like that. So you have to move it around from the outside of your brush, circulate it a little bit. That's just the way dense brushes are. The density here does give this one some backbone, but these tips are just so soft. And if you throw in some side motions, that can kind of help to circulate the lather as it takes what's on the side and mixes it around. A little bit of work to keep it in display. Right now the B4 is my favorite knot. I need to, B5 was it for a long time, but that's before I was able to try the B4. And as I was reading when they came out with B6, B7, B8, I kept reading what people were saying about those knots, and I said, I definitely don't want to try those. I mean, I wouldn't mind trying them, but I know I wouldn't be interested in owning one of those because they have more backbone than the B5. So I was able to have a B4, and I think I like it even better. And as you see, I'm just kind of reusing what's on the side of the brush. I could go back and dip in if I wanted to. But you don't need a big old thick layer. What I do want to do, and I believe I've now done it, and this is not something that I usually feel. Little brush slipped, so I just decided to hold it like this. I think I've seen some shavers hold a brush like this. It's interesting. I never have before. I never feel with my face when it's time to quit brushing it in. It's more of a time thing. It's more of a like all of a sudden the lather doesn't feel creamy. I mean, it doesn't change or anything. I just think about it. Well, has it been long enough? Has the lather had a chance to kind of bond and cement with my face so it can protect me and that sort of thing? And then when I feel like the answer to that is yes, then there we go. Hard water here, and as you can see, Icarus lathers just fine with hard water. All right, Nacet. Ooh, that's a nice cut right there. And this is not even anywhere near a new Nacet. This is maybe the best blade I've had with this razor so far. That's tremendous. It's just breezing right through the hairs. Pretty standard growth today, 24 hours approximately. This is just moving nicely. I discovered a long time ago that if I did a little up stroke kind of along the bottom there, that just worked out for me a lot better than trying to go down and stop at the right place. So what this did was decimate that first pass really well. Now let's see what happens in the subsequent passes as there's not very much stubble left over. Does this blade tend to stir up a little bit of irritation, or does it back off and allow things to be smooth and just takes care of the touch-ups? So that's something we're going to be watching for. Oh, and speaking of touch-ups, I can take my goatee lather. Man, that Icarus feels so good. Nice. Guys, I am so happy to report that I'm not getting any kind of coolant, any kind of menthol feel from the soap. Very much at all. I mean, maybe just a tiny bit, but it's enough to where even I am fine with it, and that means it's pretty low because I am very sensitive to menthol. I just don't enjoy it. Often it presents as a more of a burning sensation than a cooling one. And my face does feel a little cooler than it does usually, but it's just very mild, and I'm happy with that. Now, what kind of scent are we getting from the now mixed up lather? Very faint woodiness. Interesting. Yeah, it's not very strong. See what it's so light that I don't even remember how it smelled during the first pass. I know we're going to have some soap left over, so why not bring in a little bit more lather left over is what I meant to say. Man, the brush feels great. Now, if you want this kind of feel, but you don't have the bucks for a declaration knot, you could check out Maggard's SHD knots. You can also look at Sterling has a finest badger knot that's really good. They've got one at about the $35 price range that can get close to this kind of feel. It really, really can. Elite has some expensive knots that do well, like these do. Elite razors. Umo has the Manchurian and some others, but they're slightly different. I really like this. There's a finest badger from Macedo that's about $44. That does a very good job of having similar tips like this that are just so soft. They've been treated, you know, and so they're soft. This lather is just perfect, right where I like it. You could probably even take a little bit more water if I wanted to. Cross grain now. I try to make the blop land in the sink sometimes. Failed. Feels very good. This is the best razor blade that I have had in this razor. Just keeps getting better. The one I tried the other day, the Astra, did very well. This one's doing even better. Light touch right there. Since I'm going over this area twice per pass, I keep that touch light. Man, this base feels so good. Creamy. Nice. And let me get a good rinse. I thought I kind of knew what juniper smelled like. I don't think I'm getting any of that. Or it could be that I don't actually know what juniper smells like, and so that's why I'm missing it. But the scent is really very light. If I pass this on to someone else, it may not. It's probably not going to be because of the menthol, which is usually the case, because the menthol is holding back at an acceptable level for me. It's going to be, and in fact, I could, sometimes when you have a part of a shave that maybe you don't like, you can take your mind to a certain place, and then it turns that not like into something to think about, contemplate on, enjoy, and so it can twist it into a like for instance. And I think this is the intention for this menthol in this mix, is to be that clean air scent, the cold air scent, that sensation of being outside. And so if I put my mind in that kind of place, then all of a sudden this cooling, this light cooling sensation can become something I enjoy. And I think that's true here. And I am feeling it. It is building up slightly, but it's still a nice, pleasant coolness for me. So I'm not really getting the juniper, the cedar. What I don't like is when the cedar scent smells like an old cedar chest. I grew up with a few of those. And so that's not a scent that I enjoy when it's primary note in an accord. This Nacet's doing great. So we've got most of the hairs taken care of. I am continuing to just use light pressure, and it's working really well. I don't feel like I'm generating any kind of irritation, tenderness. Now here's the proof of the pudding here. See if we get the bonus points. Okay, yeah, right along this line. When it came up here, my hair switches where that's kind of against the grain, right up here in this area. So as long as I stay down here, I'm okay. But then sometimes I'll test a razor and see when it gets up to that border, what does it feel like? And this one, it was starting to irritate a little bit, but that's not a big deal. If I would have pushed it, it would have maybe generated a little bit of irritation. So yesterday with the Astra, I got a great cut. A little bit of blade feel, and I ended up with a really, really close cut, even in my tricky area right there. So I'm anxious to see what today's does. It was a sharp feeling shave, like a feather can sometimes give, but it didn't give very much audio because this razor clamps down really well on the blade. It's close to the edge, so it's consistent. I didn't get any cuts or anything close to that. I may have generated a little tenderness, but maybe not. It is a woody smelling soap, but the scent strength, I'm thinking like a 2 or a 3. Very, very mild, very light. For me, I'd say it's a 2. For everybody else who often shaves with a little slightly higher concentration of lather, of soap in their lather, then maybe I'd say a 3. So, but it does have a hint of outdoors, a hint that can take your mind to a mountaintop, a high, cool mountaintop with some woody And I think there was a hint of the juniper in there that does help the cedar not to be so mono scent focused there. It helps to turn it from, well, here's cedar, into forest, into outdoors. I think it does a good job with that. So I am so glad I was able to try this, because I would have totally passed on it otherwise. And it is light. But I wonder, do I have any other shaving soaps that perform this kind of service? Take you to an outdoorsy place. Definitely not any that bring in a mentholated aspect for a cool, outdoorsy kind of experience. Wow. Again, I am really happy with the cut. Right here in this hollow area next to my Adam's apple can be such a problem, but terrific. Close cut. I just see the tips, just the tops of the hairs. I don't see any length at all. I didn't go against the grain. Let us deploy some trade winds. It has oriental spices, sea air, and cucumber. The sea air might have a commonality here with the cool aspect of the Taum Sauk. I believe this, no, I think that was Stubble Buster. I think with the, wait, yeah, this is Chiseled Face. Same folks that make it, but with Stubble Buster, I think they actually put acetylsalicylic acid, aspirin or Tylenol or something like that actually in the product to help your skin to feel better after the shave. This definitely has some menthol, more so than the soap, of course. But so many of the Chiseled Face scents are ones that I really enjoy, that I have just tried to learn to live with the menthol. And sure enough, but we do have extra lather left over after the 3 passes, but not a ton. So it looks like the 50 seconds was a very good idea. Look at that kind of elasticity there. Terrific. So that was perfect. 50 was the right guess. And that's what it was, I guess. It just worked out this time. And always remember, with these dense knots that just have so many bristles in there, whether it's an expensive brush or a cheap one, you got to make sure you rinse it really well to get all that soap out of the core of the brush. So 4 teaspoons of water for the 50 seconds of loading. Face feels good. Don't feel any of that tenderness. Wonder if the cooling agent in the aftershave, it did bring out just a little bit of redness, and sometimes an alcohol splash can do that for me. But it will go away pretty quick. I think the Trade Winds is kind of complementary to the Taum Sauk. It is a different tilt, a different vibe. It's definitely more with the spices than with more of an outdoorsy focus. And so it does represent a shift in your scented mind, So crisp, enjoyable cutting action with this combo of the Nacet, and in its 11th use. And so it's definitely at a point where many users would have already pitched it, but it cleanly mowed through my hair. You know what? Maybe I should try a fresh Nacet tomorrow in the same razor and see if it is more edgy and just feels totally different. Maybe the 10, 11 uses put it in the right place for this razor. And maybe an early Nacet, a very young one, 1 or 2 uses, would be just a little bit too rough. Would be interesting to try that out. All right, guys. Well, I'm a happy camper. Got this nice scent. The spiciness of the trade winds here is kind of making me think it's intense. I'm gonna have to reevaluate, think about it maybe in about 20 minutes and see if it settles down into something that I enjoy having on me. Right now it's kind of heavy, and I didn't use all that much, but I can see how people would like it. It's definitely got a mind to it. It was put together on purpose, and I do recognize that. All right, guys. Well, there we go. That's tonight. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves, and I sure hope that this video is going to have something for you to help you out. Take care, and good night.